Hello, welcome back to Warhammer 40k. Guys, we've got another tier list video for you today. This time we're going to be looking at the fast attack selections in the Necron Codex. So if you haven't already seen the previous videos, we've already covered the elite options within the Necron Codex as well as the HQ characters. So check those ones out, they'll be in the Necron playlist on the channel. But as for today, we're going to be doing the fast attack options. We're going to be starting from the D tier and working our way up to the S tier, otherwise known as the God tier. Now as always, I've got to put a plug at the start of the video. If you haven't already, check out the members area by clicking the join button down below, just for more information on how you're going to be supporting the channel. Every penny made from the members area simply goes straight back into the channel, upgrading the tech, and as some of you guys already know, I'm looking to be battle report ready by 10th edition. And furthermore, members that are within our Discord server will be given a unique title rank within our actual Discord. So I've got some examples on the right hand side of this screen for you now of some of our members and their selected title ranks in the Discord. Now they're going to be unique to each person. There's not going to be two overlords, there's not going to be two technomancers, it's going to be completely unique to you. Okay, so the plug is out the way, let's get on with the video. Now we would normally start in the D tier, but I don't actually have any models within the D tier. So we're going to be skipping straight to the C tier. Now how we're going to do this, similar to the other previous videos we've done, we're going to start off on some positive notes, we're going to talk about some negatives and then explain why they're in this actual tier group. Now the Canoptic Acanthrites, they're not actually that bad of a unit, hence why they're not in the D tier, they're in the C tier. So let's begin with the positives. So they've got a 12-inch movement and fly, that's going to be quite common, this is a fast attack video after all, but we've got to put it in the positive section, 12-inch movement with fly. They've got the core keyword, so they can be used in abilities such as the My Will Be Done ability, and lots of other abilities that relate to being core. They've also got the Technomancer synergy because they're Canoptic, so if you're using the Canoptic control node, you're going to be plussing 1 to the hit roll, pretty good. They're both a range and melee unit, and both of them are pretty decent. So the range capability, okay, is only 12-inch, assault 1, strength 8 minus 4 AP, d6 damage, or d6 plus 2 at 6-inch range, so it's effectively like a melter weapon. But further to add to this, they've got a Void Blade, so strength 5 minus 3 AP and 1 damage, and you're going to be doing 3 attacks with this. Now the datasheet does say 2, but you do get an additional attack with this weapon. I'm not quite sure why they've done it that way. Forge World don't seem to keep up with their units. But having a melter weapon as well as effectively a power sword on a single model isn't really that bad. Now they're also a pretty good target for the Veil of Darkness relic because of that melter weapon that they've got. I need to stop calling it melter, it's a cutting beam. We're not Space Marines, we are Necrons. Easily getting into 12-inch range with the Veil of Darkness relic, using the cutting beam to be absolutely frying enemy units. Then finally they've got the Shadowed Wings ability, so range attacks made against them will be a -1 to hit. Very similar to our Tomb Blades there, which we're going to see later in this video. Now as for the negatives, naturally they hit on a 4+ because they're Canoptic units. Doesn't really go well when you've got strength 8 weapons. They've also got no invuln save. Now they're quite comparable to Canoptic Wraiths in some sense, but Canoptic Wraiths of course have the invuln saves naturally attach them with their Wraith form ability, and they're actually much cheaper, so for me Wraiths are just a better option in the fast attack slots. So that's why the Canoptic Acanthrites are going to be in the C tier. They're not a bad unit, I just can't seem to ever fit them into a list when you've got Canoptic Wraiths and other units that we're going to talk about today. Next in the C tier list, we're going to go with the Canoptic Tomb Sentinel. Now another fast moving unit, 10-inch movement, doesn't have fly this time, but it's still 10-inch. Both the range weapons as well as the melee capabilities are pretty strong, very similar to the Canoptic Acanthrites in fact. Now the Tomb Sentinel has the Exile Cannon, 18-inch range, heavy d6 unfortunately, but strength 10 minus 4 AP, damage is 3 with the blast keyword. Slightly let down with that blast keyword there. Now it's got the Tomb Sentinel claws, which are melee, strength 7 minus 2 AP, 2 damage, so of course that's going to be taken away some infantry models. Now further to boost this, you can use the Gloom Prism for some anti-psychery, very similar to the Canoptic Spiders. They can act as if they were a psyker doing the Deny the Witch test. Now this thing weirdly has the Dimensional Translocation ability, so it can be deep striking in from turn 2 onwards, which is going to pose a threat to your opponent's deployment zone. So they're going to have to screen off that and completely change their tactics in order to prevent the Tomb Sentinel from actually coming in. Now it's toughness 7, which is pretty good, pretty resilient, as well as 9 wounds, on top of that 3+ armor save. For 110 points, I don't think it's too bad of an option, so it's in the C tier. Now as for the negatives, again it's a Canoptic unit, so it's hitting on a 4+ naturally. No invuln save again, so a lot of weapons are just going to go straight through that armor. Now it does have to get past the toughness 7, but once it does, it's going to be going through like butter. As we already mentioned in the good section, Yes, it does have the capabilities at range and in melee, but you can't shoot this weapon into combat even though it's a monster unit because the weapon has got the blast keyword attached to it, and you can't fire blast into combat, very similar to our Doomsday Arc and our Canoptic Doomstalker, which is one of the main negatives on those two units. Then finally, it's an unreliable amount of shots, D6 shots, life is like a box of chocolates, you never know what you're going to get. Okay, so that's the C tier all wrapped up, the Canoptic Acanthrites as well as the Canoptic Tomb Sentinel. So let's move on to the B tier. And to begin the B tier, we've gone with the Ophidian Destroyers. 10-inch movement again, pretty good. Hardwired for destruction because they're a destroyer cult unit, so they're going to be rerolling ones to hit naturally. They've got the whip coiled bodies, so that's a -1 to hit these guys in melee, not too bad. Tunneling Horrors, which is effectively like Dimensional Translocation, it's pretty much deep strike, coming in from turn 2 onwards, threatening your opponent's backlines. It doesn't have to be their backlines, it could be anywhere on the board of course, but I like to mess with my opponent's minds when, if they leave their deployment zone, yeah, we're coming in from the back and we're taking everything they've got. Now they've got a pretty decent melee output, quite comparable to the Scorpion Destroyers, although these guys start at strength 4, not strength 5, so they're not going to get to those high strength weapons, but the Reap Blades go up to strength 6, and the Hyperphase Threshers are going to be staying on strength 4. But there's quite a lot of AP and quite a bit of damage there. Now I must mention here, now we've not actually put this in a bullet point, but the Ophidian Destroyers of course have the Ophidian Claws to add to their melee capabilities. So there's going to be 2 attacks per model, strength 4 -1 AP, 1 damage. So a unit of 6 of these, that's going to be 12 additional attacks. When you're re-rolling ones and the -1 AP, that's pretty decent, especially when you're in the Novak Dynasty for example. Yeah, you're going to get an extra bit of AP that way. Now further to add to this, with the Reap Blades, any hit rolls of a 6 will score an additional hit. Now some people have asked me in the comments in the past, why do the Scorpion Destroyers not get this, but the Ophidian Destroyers do? Well, it's very simple. If you look into their actual war gear, the Ophidian Destroyers are equipped with 2 Hyperphase Reap Blades, whereas the Scorpion Destroyer is only equipped with 1. So this will compensate for the fact that they've got 2 of them. Now I would like to have just seen an additional attack as opposed to a 6 scoring an additional hit, but hey, the rules are the rules, that's what they've got. Now they've got access to the Burrowing Nightmare stratagem, which is effectively like a redeploy within the game, although it will happen on your next reinforcement step. It won't happen in the same movement phase, it will happen in the next one. I like to think of it as like a second version of a Veil of Darkness relic, popping in and around the battlefield, getting into better positions. And then finally, of course, they're a core unit, so you can be using things such as the My Will Be Done ability. However, they're quite likely going to be working alone. If not, they're going to be with a Locust Lord, a Scorpion Lord, maybe at a push Catacomb Command Barge. Now as for the bad, they're only toughness 4. That's another negative comparison in terms of comparing them to the Scorpion Destroyers. Those guys are toughness 5, these guys are only toughness 4. They're quite fragile, and to add to that, they've only got an armor save of 4+ as well, so yeah, they're very fragile in fact. Scorpion Destroyers just have better stats overall, and if you've got the opportunity to choose the Scorpion Destroyers over the Ophidians, you take the Scorpions every time, but they are a bit different battlefield role. They're in the elite selections, so if you don't have any space available in the elite selections, then yeah, maybe you want to go for your Ophidian Destroyers. Okay, moving on to the next section in the B tier, I've gone with the Triarch Praetorians. Not one of my favoured units, although a lot of people in the comments saying that they are pretty good. Now they've got the 10-inch movement with the fly keyword again, pretty nice. You could take larger units of up to 10 of them as opposed to 6 like the Destroyer Cult units. More bodies in there, more attacks in there. Now these guys are ranged as well as melee, which is not the first time we've said that in this video. And they've also got options within their actual weapons. Now you can either take the Rod of Covenant, which is both shooting and melee. It's only 12-inch range, assault 1, strength 5 -3 AP and 2 damage. And the melee variant is the exact same stat, strength 5 -3 AP, 2 damage. So a good sort of Space Marine killer if you like. Whereas the other option is the Particle Caster and the Void Blade. So the Particle Caster is strength 6, but it is no AP and 1 damage. So this is better going up against toughness 3 kind of factions that have got a low armor save. You only need 1 damage against them kind of units. And the Void Blade, now this is only strength 5, but it's -3 AP and 1 damage with an extra attack. Pretty much a power sword there, pretty decent infantry killer. Then to cap off the positives, of course they've got really good synergy with the Silent King. Normally they don't get the My Will Be Done ability from your Overlord models because they don't have a dynasty code, but the Silent King does grant them the rerolls to hit rolls at range and rerolls to room roll in melee. As well as that My Will Be Done ability of course. It makes them a lot more powerful than they are when you've got the Silent King around. Now as for the bad, we just mentioned they do not have a dynasty code, so no dynasty buffs, no Norak dynasty, no Nihilak dynasty, none of that stuff. And as just mentioned, they're not going to be getting the My Will Be Done ability from say a Catacomb Command Barge, or you're not going to be getting a Technomancer to resurrect one with the Rites of Reanimation ability. Now these guys for me are a jack of all trades, master of none kind of unit. They can do sort of a little bit of everything, but they're not a specialist in their particular field, and that's why I kind of don't tend to use them. I like to have specialists. If I'm going shooty, I want full on shooty units, and if I'm going melee, I want full on melee units. I don't want an in-between, which is where I feel these guys are. And finally, there's no M1 saves again, so once you get through that toughness 5 with the 3+ armor save, they're going to be going down. So that's the B tier all summed up, the Ophidian Destroyers and the Triarch Praetorians. So we're on to the A tier, and to start us off with the A tier, I've gone with the Tomb Blades. Now Tomb Blades have been bumped up. I think they were probably a C tier before the chapter approved book. Now I believe they're in the A tier, and here's why. So first of all, 14-inch movement with the fly keyword. Yep, they've always had that, pretty good. You can take larger units of up to 9 of them. You're not likely to do that anymore because of the secondaries, which we're going to go over in a bit, but you do have the option for it. Now the range attacks are pretty good, especially against infantry models. They've got the range to be firing from pretty far away as well. Now they are core, so you can be buffing them up with Wild Will Down again. Maybe a Catacomb Command Barge is something that can slightly keep up with these guys. Now as mentioned at the start of this section, they're cheap and quick scorers. Especially if you've got say the Nihilak Dynasty or Eternal Conquerors, you can jump these onto an objective secured. You could be doing Ancient Machineries because they're core. You could be holding on to the objective that's got the Treasures of Aeons. And of course they're actually holding the primary as well, and they're doing it for relatively cheap because they got a points decrease quite recently. They're now only 20 points a model, or 25 if you're taking the Twin Gauss Blaster, which is probably the preferred option. It's got that 30-inch range, rapid fire 2, strength 5 minus 2 AP 1 damage. Now there are a lot of weapon options. You can instead take the Twin Tesla Carbine, or the Particle Beamers if you really wanted to. Then further to boost this, they've actually also got war gear options, so they've got the Nebula Scope to remove the benefits of cover for enemy units. You can give the Shadow Loom for the 5+ invulnerable save, or the Shield Veins to give them a 3+ armor save as opposed to a 4+. And then finally in the good, they've got the Evasion Ingrams. So any range attacks made against these guys, it's a -1 to hit. Sort of reminds me of old editions with the Jinx save. Now, as for the bad, they're quite squishy. Only 2 wounds a pop. Okay, they are toughness 5, but they start on a 4+ armor save. I think this should have been a natural 3+ armor save because the Tomb Blade kind of feels like the stat line of 2 Immortals kind of condensed into one, especially when you're looking at the actual range weapons. But they've got a 4+ armor save. And then finally, if these guys get caught up in combat, they're going to be doing absolutely nothing in melee. Other than the fact that they can just fall back, I guess. But you don't really want these guys getting tied up in melee because they're going to go down. Now onto the last unit in the A tier before we get onto the S tier. This is going to be for the Canoptic Wraiths. Now this one I was debating in my head whether to push this to the S tier or stick them in the A tier. And I've stuck them in the A tier. And I'll explain later on in the video why I've done that. So they've got the 12-inch movement. They become especially useful when they've got the objective secured dynasty codes because they're really hard to shift. Particularly because they've got the natural in-1 save with that Wraithform ability. So this actually makes them a great tie-up unit. I kind of look at them as though they were like a faster Lich Guard unit, very good at tying up, very good at scoring. Now they've got the capabilities of falling back and shooting or falling back and charging, or both in fact. It's really useful for your Canoptic Wraiths with the first wave, and then you've got a gun line in the second wave. So your Canoptic Wraiths have gone in, made the charge, made their attacks, then in your movement phase on your next turn, you simply fall back, shoot the unit, and if they're still alive, the Canoptic Wraiths can recharge in. So fight first, get rid of them that way. So we've already mentioned the resiliency with the 4+ invulnerable save. Now they can also move through models as well as terrain features as if they were not there. It's kind of like having fly, except they don't have fly. So they can't be attacking aircraft, for example, but they can go through models as if they weren't there, which is pretty useful sometimes. Now they are core as well, so they can be using the Mind Will Be Done ability, which is obviously one of our most common abilities within the Codex. And then finally, the last thing I quite like is the fact that they've got weapon options. You don't have to take the damage to Vicious Claws. If you're going up against Horde armies, you can then take the Whip Coils, which are going to give you 8 attacks per Wraith instead of 4. Now further to boost that, they've also got ranged options, Particle Casters, which are pistols, strength 6, no AP 1 damage, so they can be shot into combat, or the Transdimensional Beamer. Now it is only 1 shot, strength 4, but it's minus 3 AP and 3 damage, so you could be removing a Terminator model with that. Now it is 10 points, it's quite pricey. It's not one that I particularly like to take, especially when they're hitting on 4s. Now that's actually the first negative in this section, the fact that they're hitting on 4s because they're Canoptic. Now in terms of the damage output with these guys, I find that they're quite mediocre. They're really good at tying up units, really good at scoring, but as for damage, they don't seem to do a lot for me. You'll have to let me know about your experiences in the comments below, because for me, yeah, they don't do enough and they just sometimes underperform. That's kind of why I've left them in the A tier and not put them into the S tier today. So the A tier is concluded with the Tomb Blades and the Canoptic Wraiths. And then we go on to the S tier. You kind of already guessed it, I've said this in previous videos, but the Canoptic Scarabs, I think they're the best unit in the Necron Codex, full stop. 15 points a base. They got the 10-inch movement with fly. I prefer to actually advance with them because they're not got any range attacks. You may as well just advance them D6 or just a straight 6 if you're using the Nephiric dynasty. Now they got 4 wounds per base, so that's going to be a lot of gunfire to actually take out a single base. So really they're just a great scoring unit, especially with the Nihilak dynasty or Eternal Conquerors. When you've got objectives secured, these guys are an absolute gem. They're going to be jumping onto objectives pretty fast, scoring primaries, ancient machineries, treasures of aeons all at the same time, all in the same turn. If you don't want them scoring, they can simply be screening your models or just tying up enemy models, preventing them from actually doing stuff. And finally they got the extra little bit of damage, which is if they hit on a 6 they auto wound. Sometimes that's really strong, especially if you're going up against really tough opponents. Now I remember in old editions these things used to rip the crap out of a Land Raider model, but here we are today, they're not doing much damage. So onto the bad, there are some negatives unfortunately, even though they are S tier. Starting off with the toughness, it is very low, it's only toughness of 3. What can you expect when there's 4 wounds for a 15-point base? Now they've got a 6+ armor save, so they are very squishy, especially when you've got a large unit of these and you're going up against blast. Yeah, these guys aren't going to last long that way. And to further add to this, they've got a low strength of 3. So we've already kind of touched on it, the damage output from these guys isn't that great. Don't expect them to do a lot of damage, but that's not really what they're there for. Now we've got to talk about no prisoners as one of the secondary options for your opponent. When you've got a unit of Canoptic Scarabs, being 4 wounds a base, and if you've got say 5 of them, that's going to be 20 wounds that you're giving up for no prisoners. So it doesn't really help the no prisoners cause. So why are these guys in the S tier? They're just very small, very silky, scoring you a buttload of points and doing it as cheap as possible. I mean, a minimum unit of these guys is 45 points for 3 bases, that's 12 wounds, that's going to be 12 attacks. A few other points that we've not even really mentioned is the fact that they can synergize with a Canoptic Spider, so you can be bringing the model back each and every turn. And you've also got the self-destruction stratagem as well, which I really like. If you've got a base that's only got 1 or 2 wounds remaining, yeah, you may as well just use the stratagem, self-destruction, blow the scarab up. It's going to be causing between 1 and 3 mortal wounds. So that's the S tier dealt with. We've got the Canoptic Scarabs, and this is what the actual tier list is going to look like at the end of the day. Now this is just my opinion, of course. If you've got a different opinion to mine, put it down in the comments below, let's have a talk about it. Or alternatively, as mentioned at the start of the video, check out our members area. Support the channel from as little as 99p a month. Now I don't know what that looks like in terms of dollars, it's probably 99 cents, I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments below in fact what it looks like. Is it 99 cents? Is it $1? I don't know. But yeah, check the membership out, we'd love it if you could join us. So yeah guys, that's it for the video today. Remember to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.